It's that time of year again. The NBA regular season has concluded, and now we're at a point where we start to talk about the offseason, and there's no better team to focus on than the Oklahoma City Thunder, specifically with the way Sam Presti has went about building up this team and the rebuilding pathway that they're on. This is a team that lives in the offseason. They want the offseason here because it's ample opportunity for this team to improve and to build on what they already have on this roster. Oklahoma City Thunder fans, if you are excited for the future of your franchise and the way Sam Presti is building this thing up, make sure to leave a like on today's video to show your excitement, and also please consider subscribing. For our watch time based off of subscribers, only 10% of our watch time comes from users who are subscribed to the channel. We have over 8,000 subscribers, and based off this watch time, if everyone who wasn't subscribed that watches our channel did subscribe, we'd have upwards of 80,000 subscribers, which is obviously a massive difference. So each and every one of you could help us out by hitting that subscribe button. We would really appreciate that. Of course, no pressure, but it is completely free and takes 1 second of your time just to hit that button real quick. Moving forward now, with why this is a great place to be subscribed, we're going to focus this video specifically on the Thunder, and this offseason is going to be a huge one for them. So the video preview here, we're going to talk about the 2021-2022 NBA season for Oklahoma City, their record, some of the bright spots, some of the issues with this team as well. We'll talk about key decisions that Sam Presti has to make moving forward, NBA draft picks, which assets that they have. Of course, I'm recording this pre-lottery. We'll talk about the NBA draft lottery in this video a little bit as well. NBA draft targets I could see the Oklahoma City Thunder targeting, key players heading toward free agency, NBA free agency itself, the cap space situation that Oklahoma City finds itself in, potential targets in free agency, and then ultimately my season prediction for next year, because at the end of the day, everything is about improvement, and hopefully Thunder fans, you're hoping to see a better product on the floor next season. So let's go ahead and continue forward with the 2021-2022 season. They were 24-58 as a final record, but I think that record's a little skewed. I think the talent on this team was good enough to maybe win 30 to 35 games, specifically with the fact that, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander missed quite a bit of time, and then Josh Giddy missed quite a bit of time as well. Lou Dort missed time. And by the end of the year, Oklahoma City kind of shut everything down. They were tanking pretty evidently with the lineups that they were playing. You got a lot of Isaiah Roby run, a lot of Vit Krejci run. I mean, realistically, the Thunder team we saw the last month or two of the season is just not the team that the Thunder are going to be rolling out there moving forward. But that's okay, because there are still plenty of bright spots that we saw specifically early in the year. And I want to start here with Josh Giddy, because this is a player I was very high on, and I told everyone that this kid's going to be a really good basketball player. In the mock draft process last year, I was the first person to put him as a lottery pick. And I really built into that I thought he was going to be a phenomenal playmaker and someone you want to have the ball in his hands at the NBA level. And I think we really saw that this year. He averaged over 12 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, also nearly 7 assists a game. So had a really great rookie season. Had he played more games, probably would have made some noise for rookie of the year conversation. But nevertheless, I think he will be an all rookie first team selection. At least I think he should be. And he is very deserving of it, because he had a really nice season for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think Thunder fans probably really like this kid. And I'm glad, because, you look at the stuff that everyone was saying about him on draft day, which I thought was ludicrous, basically saying his weakness was basketball. I mean, I think he proved that wrong this year. And the thing I love about him is he really puts a lot of pressure on defenses with his passing capabilities, specifically toward the rim. I mean, he throws and delivers very tight passes that I think most players would not be willing to even try. And it's going to lead itself to a lot of turnovers. That's going to happen. But when you have the ball in your hands a lot, making a lot of good plays, you're bound to turn over the basketball. He's really going to elevate the play of everyone around him. I truly do believe that. And I think the Thunder are really good with him. Then let's move on to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA there. I love Shai as a player as well. I was very high on him when the Clippers took him. I thought that was an absolute steal, just given his height and wingspan and length, everything that he's got in terms of physicals, and his skill development's been massive in Oklahoma City. Thinking back to what he was as a rookie for LA, had a really nice rookie season. Then year 2 with the Thunder took a massive step forward in a winning situation with Chris Paul. But then years 3 and 4 have been tremendous for his long-term projectable upside, specifically with his all-NBA potential. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander not only had a good season again, but really doubled down on the potential of him being a max-type player. Obviously, they gave him that max extension that was well-deserved. And I think for Shai here, the Thunder are going to build around him, and it's very well deserved because he is that type of player. Then we have Lou Dort here, which is another player that, again, kind of came onto the scene with Chris Paul, that Chris Paul team Thunder, but then the last 2 years have been huge for his own individual improvement, specifically this season, because I think what he showed was really difficult to show. He went from 14 points a game up to 17 points a game, and his efficiency improved with his scoring output, which is very rare to see. He's actually up above the 40% field goal percentage mark. His 3-point percentage, stayed pretty level from where it was the year prior. So I think Lou Dort's here to stay. I really do believe that. And I think that was a phenomenal find by Sam Presti and this front office in Oklahoma City. It's hard to find guys like Lou Dort. They just don't come around often. And one thing that I've really noticed when you're trying to build up a team, you need to hit on players like this. Whether, you look at the Clippers, and they've done it with guys like Terrence Mann, and they've also been able to do it with, a guy like Amir Coffey. I think Lou Dort's a perfect example of this here for Oklahoma City. Good front offices find players like Lou Dort and make them work. And Lou Dort has not only worked, he has exceeded every expectation that I ever had for him. Even when I was pretty optimistic about what his future could be, he has really come along as a scorer, has even closed some games out. I think one of the games that stands out was against the Dallas Mavericks earlier this year. Hit a bevy of difficult, tough shots to close that one out in overtime. Thunder fans, you know exactly which one I'm talking about there. Lou Dort deserves a ton of credit. And if you guys do really like Lou Dort, hit the like button on this video because if I were you, I'd be so excited. And one other bright spot this year was the injury-riddled season for the Clippers. With what happened to the Clippers this year, no Kawhi Leonard pretty much all season. Paul George happened to miss a bunch of time. If they lose out in the play-in, this pick could be in the lottery, which is crazy. So you see, there's a good opportunity here. I am recording this before the play-in games happen. Now, I don't think the Clippers are going to miss the playoffs, but it's possible. And this is basically the best case scenario here. If you're Sam Presti, is one of those picks might end up being a lottery pick that no one would have expected because of injuries, the way the season played out. So Oklahoma City in a really good spot because of that. I also want to say Pokashevsky at point guard, very interesting experiment this year as well. So maybe there's a little bit of potential there yet. Of course, I still think he's a little bit of a ways away from being a good player on a good team. But ultimately, Oklahoma City, a bunch of young players. And I haven't even brought up Trey Mann, who deserves a lot of love as well. Really nice rookie season for him. I thought that was a really nice pick out of Florida. So I think Oklahoma City in a pretty good spot overall moving forward. A lot of bright spots from this past season, even despite a disappointing record at 24-58. Moving forward now into key decisions. And here's some guys that I think Sam Presti's got to make a decision on. Derek Favors, he has a player option at $10.18 million. I would be absolutely shocked if Derek Favors does not pick up that player option. Now, the nice thing here for Oklahoma City, you do need help in the front court. So Favors opting in isn't even the worst thing for you if you decide to keep him because, he has a role there. Even if you draft a couple bigs, you still need the depth there. So I think Derek Favors could still play in Oklahoma City, but we're going to discuss a different outcome here potentially. Mike Muscala has a $3.5 million team option. I don't think there's any way that the Thunder should pick this up. And Ty Jerome, $4.2 million team option. Just given where their guard situation's at with Mann and Shea and Dort and also Giddy, I don't think that you need Ty Jerome. I think that, $4 million is a little much for him. I think he's a minimum level player. So for me, I would decline that team option as well. And then if you do find a way to trade Derek Favors, which there might be a team looking for a forward like him, maybe you only have to attach a second rounder if it's just purely a salary dump move. That's not bad, especially with how many assets the Thunder have. You could open up nearly $18 million, which would give you some substantial money moving into NBA free agency, which could be a pretty good outcome here for Sam Presti because, and I've said it in multiple videos, but if you're new to the channel, I'm going to say it here. Yes, I love the idea of tanking and say, oh, we weren't going to win. Let's try and retool and really build this thing up from the bottom. I do like that, but ultimately you don't want to be at the bottom forever. Oklahoma City should have their eyes on improving every single season, taking steps forward. I understand the tanking, I understand it, but ultimately you want to start winning games. You want to give fans a reason to come. You want to have entertainment value, and $18 million of cap space, if you use that well, it could really improve this team. So I think that, going out and spending is not a bad outcome at all here for Oklahoma City. Moving into their NBA draft picks, and I think this is really the point of the video where Thunder fans are going to be the most excited. They have their own first-round pick this year. They have the Clippers' first-round pick this year from the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Paul George flip. They also have the Suns' first-round pick this year from the Chris Paul trade, which is looking like an automatic win for the Suns there because, of course, they have been so phenomenal since acquiring CP3, but also from Oklahoma City. You have to understand the circumstances in that they got picks to take in Chris Paul. They got a pick to send out Chris Paul. That's like a perfect outcome as well for Oklahoma City. So they have 3 first-round picks this year, and they have their own second rounder, which is going to be a top 35 pick. So 4 picks in the top 35 gives you a lot of flexibility. They can make some draft day trades to move around. We saw that last year. They traded the rights to Alperen Şengün to Houston and picked up future assets as well for that. So they've got a bunch of future assets. They could really be aggressive, move around, and the draft lottery is going to be very important for them as well with their own first-round pick. We do have a video up on how the draft lottery works. I'll try and put a card to that here, so make sure to go check it out in the future after you watch this video. So let's go forward now into the first-round pick, their own first-round pick. And of course, they're going to wait for the ping pong balls. That's going to be the biggest thing. I'm interested to see if Sam Presti holds a press interview as well after this lottery goes down. But the lowest this pick can be is pick 8, and that is very, very unlikely. So more than likely, this pick will be a top 5 or 6 selection. And right now they're slated to have the 4th best odds. So there's a pretty decent chance. I think it's a 12.5% chance that they pick first overall. And that pick 1 would be huge for them. So here are some of the targets here. Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. Everyone knows him. He is big, lengthy, athletic, can protect the rim, shoot the 3-ball, very skill-oriented player. Think Pokusevski, but actually really good. That's what he can be. I know some people have concerns about the size and strength that he plays with. I understand why, but if you can anchor him next to another big who can play physically, I don't have any concerns. I do have a scouting profile video of him up on the channel. I'll try and put a card for that here as well so that you can watch that one, because I do think it really goes into his strengths and why he is such an illustrious prospect, even though there are some serious concerns. And then you also look at another player here like Paolo Banchero out of Duke, who, you know, has that more NBA ready body, who took it to Chet Holmgren when they played earlier this year, both of them of course freshmen, and Banchero got the better of Holmgren in that Duke versus Gonzaga matchup. He's an intriguing player with really good offensive scoring input, and the one thing here with Oklahoma City, they were last in the NBA in 3-point percentage. So Holmgren, who shot 39% from 3, definitely intriguing prospect. Banchero, a little bit lower efficiency, maybe not quite the 3-point shooter, but very good in the mid-range and very talented around the rim as well as a scorer. Jabari Smith, he's that inside or outside inward scorer where he's going to be able to knock down the 3 with consistency and regularity. I think he really elevates this team defensively as well. I mean, the combination of him and Lou Dort on the defensive end of the floor, you have a physical, smaller guard who can, you know, kind of punish guys and pick up 94 feet in Dort. And then you also have Jabari Smith, who presents a ton of length, versatility, weak side rim protection capabilities. I do like that as well for Oklahoma City potentially. Then you look at some of the other options here. Of course, you know, Jaden Ivey. I have a whole bunch of question marks by him. If you're Sam Presti and say you get like pick 4 and somehow, you know, Holmgren, Banchero, and Jabari all go before you, Jaden Ivey, who to me is the #1 prospect in the class, does Sam Presti have the guts to take him, given the fact that Shea's on their roster, Giddy's on their roster, and they also spent another first-round pick last year on Trey Mann. They also have Lou Dort. Those, I know now Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 6'6", Giddy's about 6'7" or 6'8", so you do have size. You could probably afford to take another guard, but it's an interesting proposition here just simply because of how many guards you have. Do you take Ivey if you deem he's the best player available at that point? I'm not sure what Sam Presti thinks on that. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on who they would select. Then I also have Benedict Mathurin circled here as a potential draft target. I think they'd also target AJ Griffin out of Duke just because of how well he shot the 3-ball in catch and shoot scenarios last year. I think he'd be a perfect pairing next to Josh Giddy because he cuts without the basketball and he's very quick with his decision making. But Benedict Mathurin maybe has higher potential than a guy like AJ Griffin because he does more with the ball in his hands. Now he's a little bit less willing to cut without the ball, does a little bit less stuff without the ball in his hands. But I think his offensive upside and his athleticism are a really scary combination if you put him next to Giddy and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander off the wing. So those are some potential options with their pick. And talking about picks here is something you guys should definitely pick up, and that is a Manscaped razor, specifically from their Performance Package 4.0. You know, we're in the start of spring here, and spring cleaning is always super important. I highly recommend this product. They sent us out some free products of their own, the Performance Package 4.0, and I loved every little bit of it. The Lawnmower 4.0 pictured on the right of your screen. Very, very nice razor with high precision elements such as an LED flashlight. It's also waterproof, so you can take it in the shower if you need to. Very good product in general. Also helps prevent nicks and cuts with their guards that they provide. So a very good product. I highly recommend it. And then also the Weed Whacker on the left, they're very good as well for cleaning up any unwanted nose hair or any other unwanted body hair. I do really think that both of these products are very, very good and useful. A big thank you to Manscaped, and use code utility20 for 20% off plus free worldwide shipping. Again, that's at manscaped.com. And it's a perfect package. It really is. Manscaped, get 20% off plus free shipping with the code utility20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code utility20 at manscaped.com. It's time to throw out your old hygiene habits and upgrade your life today. Moving on to their next selection as we're continuing with picks. And this is with the Clippers first round selection. Again, this is going to be anywhere from maybe pick 13 to about pick 17, 18 at the very, very low end. So targets here for them could be the center position. That's really where I want to get started. Mark Williams out of Duke or Walker Kessler out of Auburn. I think this is the most likely need here for Oklahoma City. And if they were to move up in the draft, when I talked about their draft flexibility, they could use their own second and maybe this pick to move up back into the lottery if they wanted to ensure that they get one of these guys in Mark Williams or Walker Kessler. And the real reason here is Oklahoma City, if you're going to win games in the NBA, you need to have good front court play. You need to have good backcourt play. You need to have good front court play. I mean, I feel like this is an obvious thing to say, but you just can't be good in one of those areas. You need to have at least consistent play from both, and then really good play from one to be a playoff team, especially in the Western Conference. So for me, if you're going to try and battle with Nikola Jokic, you're going to try and battle with some of the best players in the league today, you need to present some size and rim protection, and both Williams and Kessler do that. Walker Kessler was the National Defensive Player of the Year this past year in college basketball. He's a sophomore from Auburn now, of course, played his freshman ball at UNC and then transferred out. And then Mark Williams here for Duke, another player who really protects the rim, and I think offensively a little bit more versatile than Walker Kessler, not in terms of shooting, but he's a little bit more athletic, and defensively probably switches out onto the perimeter a little bit better, where Walker Kessler is more of a drop defensive type of big. So it depends on what Mark Daigneault and the staff want to do there in Oklahoma City and what Sam Presti really prioritizes. But I think if they can end up with one of these two guys, you're looking at a really good situation. And say we maybe pair one of them with Jabari Smith, your front court goes from really meh and blah to very, very good. I mean, even the combination of the Auburn Tigers here, if you go Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler, that is a really, really good outcome in this draft. Then I also have some forwards highlighted here that they could look at. If they're going to go with someone with defensive upside, you could look at Jeremy Sohan from Baylor. Otherwise, you could look at some filler pieces in Kendall Brown, Nikola Jovic. It really depends on where this pick lands and who's on the board for them. But here, what I'm really projecting is a lot of length and size. And then Ochai Agbaji, just a really good player. He's going to play off the ball. I think he's a perfect fit next to Josh Giddy if he's available. I don't think he will be, but if he is, he's a good pickup. And then I also have guard Hugo Bassan here from the NBL. And the reasoning why here, again, remember, Oklahoma City was the worst three-point shooting team in the league statistically. They shot the worst percentage. So Hugo Bassan, to me, is the best shooter in this class in terms of pure shooter. He's going to be able to come in off the bench. You're going to have a variety of offensive sets for him. He's good off movement. I also have a scouting profile of him up on the channel, so make sure to go check that out after this video. But I really like this kid. I think he could be a really nice pickup. And we saw Sam Presti do it last year, taking Josh Giddy out of the NBL. I think Hugo Bassan, very worthy of a selection here at this point. Moving forward into the Suns' first rounder and their own second round pick, I've got a combination of guys here. Of course, these picks are only going to be about 4 picks apart, so very possible we're talking about the same range of players here. Ousmane Dieng, a guard / forward from, again, the New Zealand Breakers. He's actually teammates with Hugo Bassan, and he has really come along. In fact, he might end up slipping up into the lottery, so I wouldn't be surprised if they use the previous pick that I was talking about, the pick from the Clippers on Ousmane Dieng even. He's got a really wide draft range right now, and I think he's going to be someone who, once he comes over for the draft combine, we get a little bit better look at him in person. We'll have a better understanding of exactly where he could go in the NBA draft, but I think there's a lot of potential here with him having the ball in his hands. Trace Jackson Davis out of Indiana, a player I really like, very athletic, big. He's going to protect the rim well, and again, another addition to the front court. If they look at guards or even wings, I think Trace Jackson-Davis could play a little bit of center in the NBA as well. So I think he's an interesting pickup. Johnny Juzang out of UCLA, another example of, hey, let's just try and make this team better. Let's get a player in here who can score the basketball. They also have Kenrich Williams, who they can maybe try and trade, and Johnny Juzang can eat some of those minutes. So it depends on what they want to do. If they want to maximize asset acquisition again, a Juzang pick does make sense because you can bring him in, maybe send out another role player like Kenrich Williams, and you still have a pretty good wing off the bench. Travion Williams from Purdue. Again, this is all about trying to address big man here with the Travion Williams, Isaiah Mobley, Patrick Baldwin combination here. These three guys are all 6'10" or taller. And they're all skilled in their own way. Travion Williams, a very skilled post-up player. He's got a really good right baby hook right now, and he's a very talented passer out of the post. So if you want to build a hyper playmaking team, like they already kind of have in Josh Giddy and Pokashevsky and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and you add Travion Williams into the mix, you've got a ton of playmaking on the floor, and you could have some really interesting offensive sets where, you know, you have your bigs playmaking for your guards playmaking for your bigs, your wings playmaking for everyone. I mean, they've got a lot of potential here. Patrick Baldwin, he's a 6'10" shooter, doesn't do a lot outside of that right now. Showed a little bit of signs for Milwaukee this past year, but ultimately in the NBA, I think he's going to be a standstill shooter. And again, for a team that needs shooting, getting a tall marksman like him could help. And then Isaiah Mobley, he shoots the three ball at a very good clip as well. 37% career three-point shooter from USC. I could see them taking him at pick 30 with the Suns pick, or also using their own second rounder on him if he's still available. He's the brother of Evan Mobley, but more notably has just been really good in his collegiate career as a junior. Again, 37% career three-point percentage. And he also has a little bit of playmaking flair to him. So it depends on what Sam Presti wants to do here, but I think these are some phenomenal options for him to select. Moving forward into their key players headed toward free agency, that's nobody. Pretty much anyone that I considered a key player is going to be under contract for Oklahoma City here. A lot of those guys are on rookie deals. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is locked up on his extension. So for me, I'm not really concerned for Oklahoma City losing anyone in free agency. They will have a little bit of roster turnover, but it wasn't anything essential in my eyes. Moving into NBA free agency, they have around $6.158 million in salary cap space. And the reason you might be asking, how do we only have that much money? Well, because you've got Kemba Walker's dead money, which is part of why trading for him is why you got a first round pick. So you did eat up a lot of dead money in that move. And then you also have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's contract extension kicking in here, where he's going to start making more money. And it does belabor how much money you can use on the rest of your roster, which is why those three players earlier I talked about are essential to maybe move on from. Muscala, Ty Jerome, you can let them go. I don't think that those are big losses for Oklahoma City, specifically looking at the long-term future here. I think you will be fine letting those guys go and replacing them with the draft picks you have. And then you also have Derek Favors, who's going to opt in to that contract, but if you can try and find a way to trade him, you could open up that extra $18 million total, and you could go into the offseason with about $24 million of projectable practical cap space, which is really important because there are some good free agents out in free agency. We're going to talk about him here now, and we're going to start with DeAndre Ayton. I feel like I bring him up in every single one of these offseason previews, but it's because right now I'm focusing on a lot of the teams that, you know, didn't have the season they're maybe hoping to, or kind of in rebuild mode. And a young former #1 overall pick fits the bill here, especially at the center position where a lot of these teams need help. When the Pistons, Rockets, Thunder, I think there's going to be a competitive market here for restricted free agent DeAndre Ayton out of Phoenix. And the reason why is because the Phoenix Suns decided to not offer him a max contract extension when he was contract extension eligible this past offseason. And instead they rolled into this final year. So now he's going to be able to test free agent as a restricted free agent. And the thing here is Phoenix does have matching rights. They can match any contract offer for DeAndre Ayton. But specifically, when you're looking at Phoenix, they've already committed a lot of money to Mikal Bridges. They've got money committed to CP3 and to Devin Booker, of course. They've got money committed to Cam Johnson long-term. I'm guessing they're going to get an extension done with him. So the question becomes, does Robert Sarver, who's an owner who historically has never paid the luxury tax, is he willing to do that now for DeAndre Ayton? And my thought is probably not. They're going to try and get him on a non-max. So if you're Oklahoma City and you can get that number up near the max, DeAndre Ayton might say, well, you know, this isn't a bad outcome. I kind of want to get paid. You know, I'm a former #1 overall pick. I've been a huge part of a team that's been to the finals, and maybe this year, maybe they'll win one. And if that happens, I see DeAndre Ayton looking for money. And if Oklahoma City can throw it at him, not only does it make sense from, his camp getting a big payday, but it also makes sense for Oklahoma City to try and bring in a center of his caliber, who I think could really transform this defense and also give them a really good pick and roll partner when you look at what he could be with Giddy and Shea. I think this makes too much sense. And I think the Thunder here, after moving on from CP3 to Phoenix, could actually put Phoenix in a little bit of a bind hold by going out and trying to get DeAndre Ayton and putting him in a tough spot with a really tough offer sheet that Phoenix would have to make a decision on. If they don't get DeAndre Ayton, I think Nick Claxton's maybe the next best option, and he's going to be a cheaper option for sure. But again, if you want to, you could probably guarantee get him by offering around $13 million a year on a 3-year type of deal. 3 years, 39 for him probably gets the job done. And I think if you're Brooklyn, that's really tough to match, just given where their salaries are currently at with everyone they have under contract. And it's funny because Brooklyn used to do this to everyone right when Sean Marks took the job over as the GM there. They put a ton of pressure on everyone by sending out offer sheets when they were in the middle of their rebuild. Now Oklahoma City's in a very similar position where they might be able to do the same thing back to Brooklyn. Robert Covington, he's an unrestricted free agent. My guess is he probably sticks with the Clippers, but he could be an example of, hey, let's add in a player who can maybe help us win some more games, because a big part of development is winning games. Like if you build in some confidence that to Josh Giddy and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, say, hey, we can be a really good team. We can do this with the guys we've got. That's essential. Taurean Prince would be more of a rotational wing, not quite the impact of Robert Covington, but could be a nice add. Thomas Bryant could be a really nice cheap center option. I don't think Washington's going to look to retain him, just given all the moves they've made. Kristaps Porzingis being there now, I don't know if Thomas Bryant is going to stay. Or you could also consider Montrezl Harrell, who could be a nice bench scorer for them. For me, the options I love the most are at the top here. DeAndre Ayton or Nick Claxton. If you can come out with either one of those, if you're Oklahoma City, I feel really, really good about the offseason for them. The rest of these guys do help you a little bit in bits and pieces. Robert Covington, he's impactful, but I don't necessarily know if he moves the needle that much, whereas Claxton, I think, does move the needle, and I think Ayton moves the needle immensely. So remember, if you are able to sign Ayton, it's like basically stealing a first-round pick and the first overall pick. So, I know that there's, real potential here that Phoenix was just going to match anything, and that very well could happen, but I think Oklahoma City should put a lot of pressure on them with a good offer sheet. And then going into next season, it depends on what happens this offseason, who they specifically draft and who they sign. But given the options I've laid out for them and realistic landing spots for certain players, I think I'm going to see massive improvement from Oklahoma City, specifically in the win column. If we get to see a full season from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which we haven't seen the past 2 years, a full season from Josh Giddey, a full season from Lou Dort, and then also improve front court play, this team could win 35 to 40 games. I do not think that's crazy at all, specifically with, the team they've been playing the last month and a half of the season is not really indicative of what this team can be. I think that this team is very easily a 35 win team next year if they're healthy and play all their guys and don't tank the last 2 months of the season. And then I think if they find at least a big improvement, specifically because I think Shai could have an all NBA type of season next year. Again, a player who's averaging about 25 points a game in the last 2 seasons, on good efficiency from the field, good efficiency from three, has immensely improved as a shot creator and scorer and facilitator. I mean, he does it all. He's really right there. If you look at that redraft from that class, it's probably Luka first, Trae Young second, maybe see like a DeAndre Ayton third, and then maybe Jaren Jackson fourth, but probably Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over Jaren Jackson in that class, and maybe even Shai over DeAndre Ayton. So there's some real consideration here that, Shai Gilgeous might be a top 3 player from that class, and that class, has Trae Young and Luka in it. So Shai deserves a lot of credit and a lot of love. Oklahoma City Thunder fans, I'm sure you guys give it to him, but I'm hoping that we get to see the media give it to him as well. And then a playing team appearance should be the goal. If you look at what San Antonio was this year, I think next year Oklahoma City can be way better than what San Antonio was this year. I think that's just a fair comparison. They've got a lot of talent on this roster, and if they can add more talent into the front court, I don't think there's any reason Oklahoma City should not be like shooting for the play-in and then maybe even the playoffs. So, it's a tough West. It's going to be tough to get into the top 8, but maybe they can do it. And if you get into the play-in, you just need a couple games to go right, and you are in the playoffs. So if you could do that, I think it'd be huge for the development of these guys. I think it'd be huge for Giddy and Shai and Lou Dort and the confidence around this team. I think it'd be huge for the confidence in the head coach. I think that, making the playoffs should be the goal, and at least making the play-in should be the goal as well. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. Thunder fans, if you did, you know what to do. Hit that like button. Also subscribe to the channel. I just want to thank you all so much for watching. I do put a lot of work into these videos, and I really appreciate your thoughts and analysis as well in the comment section. Wonderful viewers. Thank you again so much, and we'll hopefully see you in the next Utility Sports video.